In the middle of the city, the company Ultraplex is getting ready to use its tall tower to launch a new invention that will solve the world's lack of energy resources. In a house nearby, Will is waiting for the launch eagerly. Because he worked on the project, his nephew Donnie is playing with his toy airplane, and Will's sister Mia is worried about her son's health, but Will promises everything will be fine. Because getting good doctors for Donnie was part of the company's deal, after a countdown, the launching finally occurs, and the family watches with awe how a huge beam of light appears on top of the tower and goes up into the sky, making Will surprised that it's actually working. A week later, reality shifts and Will appears inside a pod in another version of his world, only to come out and discover that the Ultraplex labs here are a complete mess. Will takes some mysterious cube from the pod, then searches some drawers for a charger that allows him to get his computer headset working again, and log into the company's system. Then he starts to make his way out as he records a mission log, and in every room he's devastated to find dead bodies belonging to the company's employees. The emergency lights keep flickering. There is rebellion, graffiti on the walls, and the writing is mirrored, which Will thinks confirms he's in what he calls the Echo world. Once he leaves the building, he finds the city in the same state. Dead people and wrecked cars everywhere, smoke coming out from many buildings, and the same beam of light coming out of the Ultraplex tower. Suddenly his battery starts dying again, so he has to rob a dead person to keep his computer working. Then he calls his colleague Abigail, who is surprised that he's alive and informs him of an attack on the laboratory that destroyed the QB. While Abigail sends some coordinates, Will remembers how it all started 9 months ago. Ultraplex announced that they found a way to convert mass into pure energy, and that they would launch this system through their energy tower to power the whole world for the next millennium. Shortly after the announcement, Will received an invitation to the Ultraplex offices, and he attended to meet with Abigail, who was the chief of operations. She was impressed by the fact that Will was both a physicist and a pilot who went from the Air Force to working for NASA. She also had lots of information about his career that was supposed to be classified. NASA files. Will realized this was a job interview and turned it down. But Abigail soon pulled the big guns. She promised a house for his family and medical treatment for Donnie. She also mentioned the possibility to explore impossible frontiers. Besides space, Will was curious and asked for more details, but he had to sign a non-disclosure agreement first. Back to the present. Will touches Donnie's plane in his pocket while trying to call Mia, but he keeps being sent to voicemail. Then he continues to walk through the city, which is deserted and on fire. At some spots he's amazed at the fact he's on Echo and keeps checking the cube, which is still loading the diagnostics. The tower keeps on shooting its beam, and will calculate he'll be there in an hour. After walking through a few more blocks and seeing a bunch of bodies, we'll find a TV in a store showing the news. After the beam was turned on, Ultraplex went into crisis mode, and the area was put under lockdown. While the authorities tried to evacuate the city, an environmental group known as the Rebels, led by Hugo, attacked the Ultraplex labs and tower to punish them for their invention, which according to them endangered the planet and would subsequently destabilize the system. However, many witnesses saw the rebels attack random people too. Meanwhile, Ultraplex launched its own security drones and was working with the police on the evacuation, and the affected ratio kept being increased every day at that moment. Will hears some thunder and looks up to discover a second glowing hole has opened in the sky, which he blames on a gravitational anomaly. He begins making his way towards it and finds a lot of dead birds on the ground. He also finds a boat in the middle of the road which he guesses was dropped by the anomaly. Will is commenting on how it seems to be sucking the atmosphere when suddenly there's an explosion that hurts his hand and leaves a ringing in his ears. He rushes to a pharmacy and treats his wound until his headset tells him he isn't in danger anymore. At that moment the cube finishes charging and all the metal objects on the counter get stuck on it. Then Will